Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to take you on a trend journey for the next 45 minutes, packed with insights and tools to make these trends your own. To get the formalities out of the way, my name is Eric, Content Director at TrendWatching, and I'll be sharing our 4 key opportunities for the year ahead with you. Joined are my colleagues in the chat, so if you have any questions throughout this presentation, please feel free to reach out and they'll get back to you shortly. So let me know in the chat before we start where you're dialing in from. Me and the team are currently dialing from Rotterdam in the Netherlands. I already saw a few familiar faces, so hi everyone. As mentioned, today will be action-packed, so let's dive in as we have a lot to discuss. Before we get to the trends, however, I'd like to briefly reflect on last year, while also discussing some major news headlines from the past few weeks. Then we'll have our juicy new opportunities, along with our new AI trend co-pilots that will help you make the most out of those trends. And for those who make it to the end, I have an exciting digital goodie bag waiting for you. So this is the selection of 4 trends that we think are most pressing for the year ahead. So we'll cover Loop Live, Worthwise, Sensescaping, and Manifesto. I promise they'll make sense by the end of our chat. It goes without saying that there are many more trends out there, and we are tracking them. We just believe that these 4 trends shine the brightest at the moment as a result of environmental, political, tech, and social change. So on the topic of change, let's discuss some of the major headlines from the past year and how they're impacting events happening in 2025. Perhaps the most widespread marketing gimmick of the year was Gen Z writing the script for various digital campaigns. You've probably all seen it, but basically the campaign revolves around letting boomers recite slang words like no cap, immaculate vibes, and it's giving to promote a certain brand or organization. You could call it an intergenerational collab. And while on the topic of generations, a new generation enters the world this year. Meet Generation Beta. Now, no worries. Prudential didn't poll Gen B as they were being born, but they did ask expecting parents to make some predictions. What are the implications to your brand for pet-dominated households? One thing is for certain though, Gen Beta will be the first generation born after widespread AI adoption, of which Nvidia reaped some of the rewards last year. In June 2024, they became the most valuable company for a brief moment. And even though Apple is first again now, some of the chip makers recently announced plans might shift things around once more. At CES 2025, just a few weeks ago, the company announced a new chip that will put supercomputers in the hands of consumers. And beyond that, their keynote showcased Cosmos, which is a new platform for developing physical AI systems. So even though last year, most if not all of the AI hardware flopped, it's only a matter of time before an AI gadget catches on. 2025 is likely to be the year it does. Meanwhile, upon first glance, you might think you're looking at a desert, but in actuality, it is a dried up riverbank in the Brazilian Amazon. And while Copernicus declared the summer of 2024 the hottest on record globally, things aren't looking much brighter this year. So for climate news this year alone, LA has of course been on fire, and the fires are currently still being put out, while Trump infamously announced he'd like to buy Greenland for oil drilling. And yesterday, one of his first acts after his inauguration was stepping out of the Paris Climate Agreement. But even beyond climate, 4 more years of Trumpism will undoubtedly have a major impact on global decision-making, of which the first signs are already showing. As big tech has kissed the ring, most major tech corporates have dominated the public discourse these last few weeks, with many of them donating upwards of $1 million to yesterday's inauguration. And in early January, Mark Zuckerberg announced plans to scrap its expert fact-checking program and implement a community note system similar to X, which has already been proven to not be successful at combating misinformation. So in summary, while we might all be up for some unprecedented times, that is not what 2025 has in store for us. evidenced by everything that's happened in these first 3 weeks alone. So throughout this webinar, I've sprinkled in some questions to keep things more interactive. So right now, my colleague should be publishing a poll in which I want to ask you, which of these changes will impact you the most in the year ahead? Is it the effects of climate change? Is it AI advancements? Is it C, geopolitical instability? Or is it polarization? So thanks for sharing your perspective in advance. I'll give you a few seconds. So one more time, which of these changes will impact you the most in the year ahead? Will it be climate change, AI advancements, geopolitical instability, or depolarization? All right, while you leave me with your answers, I might just steam ahead. So unsurprisingly, I think AI is the biggest topic on everyone's minds collectively. However, when developing your strategies for the year ahead, it's not necessarily just about you, because purpose-driven innovation means catering to those emerging expectations that I mentioned at the beginning. And those aren't anchored in just AI, they're anchored in basic human needs. And as opposed to what we just discussed, these needs are universal and don't really change. The need for good health, for community, and a sense of belonging will always persist, whether or not NVIDIA launches their next super chip this year. Granted, some recent additions have popped up, but generally they do not change week to week or year to year. So both those macro changes and basic human needs make up the anatomy of a trend. And when they bump up against one another, it creates expectation gaps or a point of tension. And the sweet spot of innovation is identifying and bridging those gaps, because if you fail to address actual human needs, you might end up with something like this. Meta's AI profiles. We've all seen the headers of Meta launching and then soon after that taking down various AI-driven social media accounts as a result of overwhelming backlash. And the lesson here is that unlocking the full potential of AI requires a grounding in basic human needs. When you look at the topic of AI, for instance, UK telco provider Virgin Media O2 struck the right nerve. So they employed AI grannies to combat phone fraud by keeping scammers occupied in unproductive conversations about made-up topics. And in the process, the bot also helps to gather intelligence for law enforcement. So with all that in mind, I have one final point before we dive into the trends, which is that consumers do not live in industry silos. It's only brands that do. So whenever an insight pops up outside of your industry or region, think of what the transferable insight might be for your brand. Because we're all competing in this expectation economy, not just against your direct competitors, but against almost every brand in the consumer arena. And AI is only putting this into overdrive, as expectations are emerging and transferring faster than ever, but actually. Now, we recently launched a couple of AI tools to help you spot those transferable insights and turn trends into innovations of your own. We call it Trend Baby, of which I will demonstrate multiple tools throughout this webinar. We'll first dive into a trend, and then we'll explore how both Product Lab and Campaign Crafter, 2 iterations of Trend Baby, can help you find your golden nuggets faster. All right, now that I've set the scene, we can actually dive in. And as mentioned, consumers are at the center of our trend universe. So let's consider what's on their minds. So for this reason, I want to open up the second poll. So what do you think is the biggest worry currently on people's minds right now? Do consider that this poll was taken before yesterday's inauguration, so I couldn't, add that to the list. So I repeat, what do you think is the biggest worry currently on people's minds? Is it A, climate change, B, AI advancements, C, geopolitical instability, or D, polarization? Again, going to give you a few moments to leave your answers. So what is the biggest worry on people's minds right now? Is it climate change, AI advancements, geopolitical instability, or polarization? All right, as I see answers starting to come in, I might continue Let's go. So there are some obvious picks and some newcomers, but at the top there's the worry for climate change, which has been the top worry for the past 3 years. However, new on the list is risks related to AI and big data. And in fact, these two worries are actually linked with one another. And that's because of the environmental impact of AI. There's been no shortage of headlines about this, with Goldman Sachs reporting a 160% increase in data center power demands. Businesses will need to be transparent about the steps they are taking to reduce and mitigate AI-related emissions, and be mindful not to neglect sustainability targets just for the sake of introducing new technology. Now, in the beginning, I asked you what you thought was going to be the defining change of 2025 for you. And many of you mentioned AI, which begs the question, can the biggest topic of your business agenda help relieve consumers' biggest worry? And the answer to that question is Loop Life, which covers how AI solutions can simplify and normalize the shift to circular living. A good place to start is making it easier for them to adopt sustainable habits, because 76% of global consumers say practicing a sustainable lifestyle is more important because it has an impact. Again, we're addressing basic human needs here. In this case, the need to make a positive impact in the face of the climate crisis. To help with that, Dutch grocer Albert Heijn launched its Scan and Cook AI tool, aimed at preventing food waste. Users can simply press the tool within the retailer's app, which opens the camera. They can then take a quick shot of their fridge's contents. My fridge wasn't organized optimally, so forgive me for using a Googled image. And it then creates an overview of the ingredients that it has spotted, after which you can select which ones you want to cook with. And based on that input, the tool provides a curated list of recipes. Additionally, in December, another tool was released that allows you to ask for cooking tips for each of these recipes too. So innovations like these are important because let's not forget, around 1 billion meals go to waste every single day. So innovations like Albert Heijn's aren't going to solve this alone, but they are a signal of new and emerging expectations. So consumers will wonder, if this tool can help me minimize my waste production, why aren't other brands helping out too? And on that topic of waste, does this look familiar? I hope it's not just me who struggles to put the trash in the right bin. For instance, pizza boxes now can be put into the paper trash because of the grease that's on the actual paper of the packaging. Well, there's an AI for that too. Meet Binit, an AI-powered gadget that sorts household rubbish. It's a plug-and-play camera vision device with machine learning capabilities to identify, classify, and quantify individual waste items. A corresponding mobile app then connects the device to the bin and to the Binit community for real-time tracking, goal setting, and gamification features, such as user contests. Trials have shown that the tool doesn't just improve trash sorting, it also reduced household waste altogether per person by up to 38% after just 3 weeks of usage. But before we continue, I have to bring up something that's a bit awkward, because even though climate change is indeed the top worry in the world, that doesn't mean it is always the #1 driver driving consumer behavior. So let's address the say-do gap. A recent study by McKinsey indicated that Gen Z and millennials have de-emphasized the importance of sustainability in their purchases last year. And this is true across regions globally. This is especially visible when you look at record profits for fast fashion brands like Primark and Zara, and the continual growth of the consumer electronics market. So all of this reminds us that values and behavior don't always add up. Consumers say one thing and then do another. But they do still expect brands to continue to work to make progress towards sustainability targets. And increasingly, that means deploying AI to help. And one of those examples is this new AI-powered browser plugin by Fercado that finds cheaper second-hand shopping options online. It's very simple. It uses a combination of image and text matching, and it works on sites like Amazon, Zalando, and Patagonia, covering over 1,600 websites in total. For instance, if you are looking for a new iPhone to buy on Amazon, the extension will automatically show you pre-owned options from sites like eBay. Again, think about the expectation transfers here. I'm sure most of you are not browser plugin developers, but innovations like this will push for a market where secondhand becomes first choice. So how will you adapt? An important detail regarding the say-do gap that I didn't address yet is the barrier consumers experience to being more sustainable. The main ones are cost, knowledge, and time. So therefore, in order for your sustainability activation to succeed, it needs to tick all of these 3 boxes. And with AI, they can. As a closing thought for this trend, Loop Life is not about offloading the responsibility of the green transition onto your consumers. Instead, it's really about helping them live fuller, healthier, and happier lives, because as research shows, sustainable living and green consumption and happiness are directly linked with one another. Now, you've heard me say that at the end of each trend, we'll also dive into how to make a trend work for you. And that is where we've landed now. So let's put the trend to work and see how it can inform your innovation pipeline. So for starters, let's look at one of our audience members, Samsung. You input both the brand name and the organization's URL. I'm using the Wikipedia page here. And then you select the industry and press next. After that, you select your trend. Let's select Loop Life in this case. Then you can select your audience. In this case, let's keep it general. You can then also input a business goal you're working on that you want Trend Baby to consider. So for the purpose of the demo, let's stick to something that is somewhat related to the trend, like enabling circular living. And then you press next, click on a time frame. In this case, let's aim for 2026. You can't start soon enough. And press generate. And watch the magic happen. So meet EcoVibe, which is an AI-powered sustainability coach by Samsung, which integrates into the brand's ecosystem. So the innovations offer real-time advice on reducing individual carbon footprints while also promoting eco-friendly purchases and optimizing energy use with smartphones. Additionally, the tool will also cover USPs, like personalized sustainability guidance and real-time impact tracking. And it also tells you something about how it aligns with the audience you selected, as well as an assessment of how the generated innovation links to the trend. Then finally, Product Lab also covers future opportunities, giving hints at where you could take this innovation next. And that's it, all with the push of a button. And if you don't like the ideas, you can simply press regenerate at the bottom of the screen and 5 new innovations will pop up. All right, back to the trends for just a second. So we addressed that positive impact is one of the basic human needs that is driving re-commerce behavior. But perhaps an even more powerful one is financial stress, as 30% of global Gen Z and 32% of millennials feeling financially insecure and half living paycheck to paycheck. Re-commerce is just one of the measures consumers are taking. Which brings me to the third poll. In what other ways are these 2 generations dealing with financial insecurity? Is that A, cost cutting, B, moving in with parents, C, secondary income, or D, crypto investment? Now a poll should pop up again in the chat any second, so please let me know your answers once again. So once more, how are Gen Z and millennials dealing with financial uncertainty in 2025? Is it A, cost cutting, B, moving in with parents, C, secondary income, or D, crypto investments? Now, while all of the above are likely to be true to some degree, I'd like to focus on those secondary income streams for a bit. Because the same study I referenced just before the poll also indicated that 45% of Gen Z and 36% of millennials say they have started a side job. And the top reason to take on a side hustle is the need for a secondary income source. But people have been hustling for a while, and we've been reporting on it. So let's take it back to 2016, when we reported on new labor, which saw the emergence of the gigpreneur, which coincided with companies like Uber and Airbnb hitting it big. Now flash forward to 2022, when the pandemic really helped side hustling pick up as a result of the Great Resignation, which was part of the COVID aftermath, and people reevaluating what they really wanted to do for a living. And then, in the 2 years that followed, freelancers supercharged their solo businesses by leveraging generative AI tools. But new year, new trend. So what's next for the creator economy? It's actually about extending the benefits of side hustling to everyone, regardless of occupation. So gaming platforms are pioneering this shift, turning engagement into value. The image you see here before you is one of those tap-to-earn games that have boomed on Telegram in the past year. It's called Hamster Combat, which reached 350 million downloads in 2024. These games enable players to earn real-world rewards or cryptocurrencies by repeatedly tapping their screens. And they're largely free to play, but monetize through ads or microtransactions. For example, players might boost their earnings by watching ads or spending money on upgrades. And while this hustle democratization started in gaming, we know that expectations transfer. So now consumers will expect to be able to create and capture value from their everyday activities and view their brand engagement as something that should generate value. And that's Worthwise, which addresses how consumers are rethinking how worth is generated and also exchanged. They aren't just experimental concepts or alternative payment methods. They really represent a deeper transformation of how engagement and loyalty translates into worth. Success lies in creating systems that really reward authentic participation and strategic engagement. So time to prove your worth to consumers. Let's see how brands are doing it. Because two new expectations are emerging from this shift. First, it's to be rewarded for engaging with a brand. Attention might now be the ultimate currency. So naturally, consumers want to be rewarded for spending time with you. And Travelly taps into that. It's a booking platform that invites users to upload short but high quality video reviews of properties to its website. And when users book by clicking through on a video, the creator earns a 5% commission on that booking. So this is what the 2026 version of engaging with consumers looks like. And this way of building connection is important, as many believe brands should create a sense of community. But as is usually the case, the goalpost is always moving. So increasingly, these brand communities will have to be centered around value creation too. So for the second mindset, I want to focus on community being capital and the need for collective compensation. Now, brands have always realized that there's capital to be gained in community, but now consumers are starting to come to that realization as well. We're facing some technical difficulties. Give me 1 second. And we're back. So that is what On the House is doing. It allows content creators to pay for goods and services by posting Instagram stories instead of spending cash. So the brand provides weekly allowances based on follower count and engagement, with allowances of up to $4,000 US. But as I mentioned, at the beginning of this trend, the trend is really about democratizing side hustle benefits. So let's have a look at what an activation like this could look like beyond the 1% of the creator economy. Has anyone here heard of TYB? It is a new platform that promotes community engagement in a way that actually benefits the community. So Glossier, which is a beauty brand, is one of the first brands to jump on board. So on the platform, you can engage with challenges set by participating brands. For Glossier, challenges include attending community events, nominating your favorite product, and sharing looks created with Glossier makeup. So completing challenges then generates brand-specific coins, which can be used to purchase products from that same brand. And this need for community is also demonstrated by the year-on-year growth of Roblox, which now averages over 89 million daily average users. A mutual and communal value is to be created in digital communities too. So the co-worker game on Roblox allowed players to experience working in a virtual IKEA universe, helping customers, gaining promotions, and exploring various departments. So fans over 18 and based in the UK or Ireland could apply for one of the 10 virtual roles, with successful candidates earning the equivalent of real-world workers. So the open call launched in June of last year with over 178,000 applications during the 2-week window. Talk about an HR nightmare. So summarizing, the building blocks of successful worthwhile innovations are a fair exchange with actual and preferably monetary rewards, authentic influence, and what I mean by that is that data is showing that consumers are less and less connecting to the VIP influencers of the world. And instead they want to see and hear from regular people just like them. And Worthwise can help attract that type of engagement. And last but not least, new economics. So this isn't just about launching a new loyalty point system. It's about creating value in new ways, whether that's by creating your own currency or moving towards platforms that are designed for communal experiences. So let's explore a campaign that was designed with our campaign crafter tool, using one of our clients in attendance as a case study, LVMH. So this one is called the Luxe Vibe Collective. It is a new type of community-driven platform that invites consumers to co-create exclusive experiences, and then in the process of that, turning them into stakeholders. And beyond that, the idea discusses the emotional impact of the innovation. So in this case, catering to the basic human need of authenticity, belonging, and control. And similar to Product Lab, it also addresses the audience and trend you've selected and explain why it relates to them. So to close things off and to get back into the trend, there's also an award-worthy impact paragraph explaining what it is exactly that makes this campaign truly novel. It's equivalent to the USPs that are addressed within the Product Lab functionality. So for our third trend, let's shift our focus from external value to internal insights. And in that context, are you familiar with neuroaesthetics? It is the scientific study of the neural consequences of contemplating a creative work of art. So in other words, how engaging with art can change the body, can change the brain, and also change behavior. It is a subfield of both applied aesthetics and cognitive neuroscience. And proponents argue that engagement with art should not be considered a nice to have, but a necessity. And over the last decade, we've seen greater emphasis on holistic health, how everything we do in our daily lives contributes to how well we feel, and that includes what we eat, but also how we choose to spend our time. And more evidence about the health benefits of engaging with art and culture continues to emerge. Have a quick read through these quotes from an aggregated study by the University College of London, which looked at research into the impact of arts and culture on population health. It's hardly surprising that the practices of social prescribing is gaining traction. In the UK, for example, referrals have tripled over the last 3 years. And social prescribing refers to GPs prescribing patients with non-medical issues that impact their health access to a range of activities, from physical activity to crafts, singing, and green volunteering. Again, reinforcing a more holistic approach to health. And we've seen an explosion of interest in immersive art exhibitions over the last 5 years. Perhaps you've even been to one. And artists are continuing to push at the boundaries of what an immersive art experience is. So if you're wondering what's on the screen here, it's an immersive installation from the Venice Biennale last year, in which participants were wrapped in a connected garment adorned with luminous embroidery that lifts and lights up as text changes. It's a new way to be physically immersed in a narrative of a story. And this will only become more common as mind-reading tech moves out of the lab and closer to reality. So Boston-based Neurable recently started selling a pair of headphones that contain EEG, which can measure electrical activity in the brain. And the headphones are embedded with AI and can translate this activity into usable information for the wearer. Essentially, it's like a Fitbit for your brain that can detect burnout and fatigue, signs ahead of time. And costs of that are currently quite high, around $700. But as these innovations become more mainstream, the costs are, of course, expected to decrease and become more accessible to a wider array of consumers. And what's the big driver here? Which is, of course, personalization, because people love things that are tailored to them and allow them to learn something about themselves. And that leads us to our third trend, sensescaping, and the rise of multisensory experiences that provide new routes to enlightenment. Let me explain what I mean by that. Because how might this trend be applied? Well, the first step is facilitating inner journeys. So this is an innovation by Art Fund, which is a UK-based arts charity, and they ran an initiative to gauge art's impact on the brain. So visitors to their gallery in Surrey were invited to tour the collection while wearing a headset connected to an EEG monitor, so the one that monitors the electrical sensations in your brain. And after their visit, they were presented with a 3D map showing how their emotions were affected. And the charity hopes that the initiative will demonstrate the intrinsic value of art and creativity while also helping to push the sales of its art pass. So if you're a brand that sells intangible services, this lets you showcase its benefits. And here's an airline take. Turkish Airlines launched an art project titled Inner Portrait in collaboration with artist Rafik Anadol. Anadol sent 4 people who had never traveled abroad before to new destinations and used sensors to capture their raw emotional data in the form of heart rate, skin conductance, and EEG outputs. And the information was then translated into virtual immersive experiences, which aim to demonstrate the connection between travel and neuronal activity. And consumers love learning about themselves. Which brings me to step 2, emotional tangibility. So the Mindography from Fujifilm Instax used AI and neuroscience to recreate lost digital memories. A team of neuroscientists reconstructed support worker Nicole Torm's lost memories in digital form. How did they do it? Well, functional MRI scans mapped Nicole's brain activity as she visualized each memory, and then AI algorithms generated images from her thoughts. So the campaign generated significant social impact, reaching 12 million viewers. And then finally, enlightenment. In a retail space, yes, Nike gave it a shot and reimagined its Paris House of Innovation with physical and sensory aspects. So the centerpiece, the Breath Lab that you see here, is a sphere where visitors engage in guided breathwork exercises that affect the ambient conditions, creating a personalized aura that changes color with their breathing patterns. So the interaction is enabled by an AI model, which processes breath-related data captured by a thermal camera to adjust the ambience accordingly. And taking this even further is the submersive spa, which is slated to open in the US next year in 2026. It's billed as an immersive art bathhouse, and while there's not so many details at the moment, it will combine a classical spa therapy with arts, AI tech, and multimedia. So it sounds like it will go way beyond relaxation into elevated states of consciousness like awe, wonder, and euphoria. To wrap up this trend, let's see how TrendBaby thinks Hilton can act on sendscaping. So it came up with NeuroNest, which is a series of immersive rooms that are designed to promote self-discovery and personal growth. It utilizes neuroaesthetic design and biofeedback to create personalized multisensory experiences. Similar to the Nike initiative, the rooms adapt in real time based on the emotional states of those who inhabit the spaces. And when we jump into the future opportunities, we see that TrendBaby suggests things like VR integration too. So the way I use these are like extended post-its. So whenever you're trying to brainstorm new product or campaign ideas, TrendBaby is basically an additional colleague dedicated to ideation 24/7. So for our final trend, let's discuss the flip side of the coin, because it turns out there's also a low or even no tech approach to processing human emotions. And people seemingly want to embrace those emotions, with 91% of global consumers wanting to feel more emotion in their lives. And the evidence of this is widespread across mainstream culture as well. So I'm sure most of you have seen Inside Out 2, an animation movie by Pixar, launched to immense success, covering the human emotions. And you might have also heard about Brat, the latest album by UK pop star Charli XCX. And also, it happened to be Collins Dictionary word of 2024, which can be defined as confident, independent, and hedonistic attitude. And one powerful driver behind these hedonistic tendencies? Well, 27% of US teens are struggling with burnout, while 51% feel pressure to present themselves in a certain way. And some brands are responding, TikTok for instance, surprisingly, if it manages to stay up, that is. They are set to ban filters for under 18s in a move aimed at protecting young people using the platform. So it followed a report commissioned by TikTok, which assessed the impact that filters have on self-esteem of young people. Which brings me to the fourth question, which revolves around rejection therapy. And I want to ask you, what exactly is it? What is rejection therapy? Is it A, a mental health startup? Is it B, a psychological experiment? Or is it C, a TikTok trend? Again, what is rejection therapy? Is it A, a mental health startup? B, a psychological experiment? Or C, a TikTok trend? I'm going to give you a few seconds to input your answers. All right, looking at the time, I might just push through. So let's hear it from the horse's mouth.
Basically, the whole point of rejection therapy is to get better at hearing no and to ask, I guess, uncomfortable questions and to ask for things that you really want and get used to that feeling of not knowing what the response is going to be and kind of putting yourself out there.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, go. Hi, everyone. Hi, it's my birthday. Thank you.
So it's basically intentionally moving to those awkward happenings as this girl is demonstrating. So what does this tell us? It tells us that imperfection is now a status symbol and being messy and vulnerable is being embraced. Which brings us to Manifesto, covering why and how to celebrate messiness in the age of AI. So after a survey revealed that 87% of US Zillennials admit to cooking fails during special occasions, Knorr unveiled their Effort is Everything ahead of Thanksgiving in November of last year. So the campaign covered images of real-life cooking mishaps from consumers, showcased on the brand's social media channels. And fans could then also post their own meal mishaps on social media with the campaign hashtag, with the chance of winning exclusive goodies. But processing complex emotions also means moving out of the screen and giving consumers literally space to feel. So fashion label Mista temporarily transformed part of its New York store into a corporate office-themed rage room before it opened in July of last year. So the space was decorated with discarded supplies found around the city, and Mista invited members of its New York community to physically express their frustrations by smashing and destroying everything in sight. So the concept evolved into a community rage wall where visitors were encouraged to write their concerns, whether it's political or personal, environmental, on post-it notes that are then displayed on the rage wall. And while these campaigns might put a smile on your face, it's also important to consider the emotional layer beyond the fun and games. For instance, by acknowledging the messiness of real life. Powerade did so by introducing the Athlete's Code, a contractual amendment allowing sponsored athletes to pause their partnership commitments to focus on mental and physical well-being without risking their sponsorship status. So the initiative was launched with a roster of elite athletes and represents a significant shift away from win at all costs. That is currently the mentality in elite sports. But the pressure to be perfect is felt way beyond professional athletes as well, as 1/3 of Gen Z children say that they feel pressure to be perfect, and the sentiment is even higher among 13 to 15-year-olds. So acknowledge and then break the taboos that you might be complicit in. The Self-Esteem Project for Women was developed by Dove to counter harmful New Year's resolutions, particularly those centered on weight loss and beauty ideals. It includes videos, activity workbooks, and tips on redefining beauty and fostering body confidence. So therefore, writing your Manifesto means considering how you can help your audience cope with the pressure to be perfect all the time and embrace the messiness of being human. In that sense, 3 stars is the new 5. So for our final innovation, our final generated innovation, we picked Heineken, and our product lab tool came up with the Human Brew. It's a campaign that's designed to connect Heineken with consumers on a personal level by celebrating the imperfections and human stories behind each brew. Beyond that, the campaign would also offer a platform where consumers can share their personal stories that they are intrinsically linked with Heineken moments. And each story will be paired with a custom brew, connecting human experiences to specific flavors, aromas, and then also sensations. We did it! We made it till the end. Thanks for sticking around. So to summarize, we discussed Loop Life, which is all about deploying AI to enable circular living. Worthwise, which discusses how consumers want to be rewarded for engaging with you, creating new types of value on both ends of the consumer brand spectrum. After that, we took a journey inwards with Senscaping, which explained how new age tech can reveal inner truths. And finally, Manifesto, about how brands can help consumers deal with complex emotions and encourage them to embrace the messiness of being human. Now, before I hand you your goodie bag, I have one final question for you, which is, which of the trends we discussed today was your favorite? Was it Loop Life, Worthwise, Senscaping, or Manifesto? Again, my colleague will be posting the poll results, or rather the real poll, any second now, so please let us know what your favorite trend of the day was. Was it Loop Life, Worthwise, Senscaping, or Manifesto? All right, now it's over to you, because trends really only work if you do. Like I said, we do have a digital goodie bag for you, because all good comes to those who wait. So for starters, if you are not a member yet, you can now scan the QR code on the screen or simply Google TrendWatching trial, and you'll be able to get access to our platform for 14 days, no credit card needed. And on it, you'll find tens of thousands of innovations, countless industry reports, our reporting of the zeitgeist of 2024 through daily, and of course, our trend database. So with your platform trial, I invite you to deep dive into our trend framework and explore which of the nearly 300 trends might be relevant to you. And no worries, there's no need to go through all of them manually one by one, as you can research trends based on industry, based on basic human needs, or on those macro changes we've discussed throughout this presentation. And once you've found a trend that you like, you can now turn them into innovations of your own. On the platform, you'll have access to our Pro Trend Baby tools, which means you can ideate with any trend on the platform instead of just the 4 trends that are available on the free side. And then additionally, it also has an image ideation tool. So once you've found an innovation that you like, you can also have it visualized on the spot as well. And aside from that, there are also plenty of other tools to come by, like Scenario, which lets you scan market opportunities for your industry, or Product Boost, which allows you to improve a current product using insights from one of our own trends. So thank you so much for signing up and sticking around till the end. We know there's a lot of overwhelm and quite a bit of doom and gloom out there. However, we'll keep focusing on bringing you new and exciting opportunities despite everything for trend-loving people like we all are. You will soon also receive an email including the slides of this deck and an invite for our next webinar, which is coming up very soon. That's unfortunately all that I have for you today. So thanks again for listening and see you soon. Goodbye.